What we did is we ran into a ferocious and passionate Argentinian group. It wasn't just the team. It was the guys on the bench. It was the coaches. It was the crowd. And it's something that All Blacks have to learn. And there's a lot of young players that haven't been to Argentina and played before. So they will learn from that. Absolutely. We want a higher standard. But don't blame the backs, I'm saying.
Well, who do you blame?
Blame the forwards.
Blame the forwards.
Blame the forwards.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Couple of days after, we got towelled by Argentina. Not on the scoreboard, but in performance in Buenos Aires. Our man Murray Mexted, former All Black number 8, very proud representative of our country. So 1979 through to 1986, and played over 70 consecutive games for us. Mex always joins us as a guest every week. We love to have you on the show, mate. I'm going to read you a couple of things, and I did warn you about this. After the first test, praising the All Black backline. This was against France for the second test. You said you're very positive about Proctor. We're going to revisit that. And after last week's selections, picking size and power to play Argentina, you're very firm on the fact that the selectors, I quote, have got it right. Okay, so if we assume that the players are the right players, Mex, what the hell went wrong then? And what is going on with why we can't seem to coordinate these guys in a cohesive 80-minute performance?
Have you been to Argentina, Martin?
Never have, no.
No, okay. Well, I reckon it's one of the most passionate places in the world, and I've travelled a bit in my time, and I recall playing rugby there. We drew a test, and we were, they were a minnow, and we were sort of ranked one in the world. We played 2 tests. We won the first one by about 6 points, I think, or 8 points. Second one, we drew 18 all. Now, we were a much better team than them, but we drew 18 all. And they just hit us with so much passion. It was incredible, actually, and it took us by surprise, and it was effective. The crowd, you can even see on the television when you're watching the games, you can see how excited they are. What you can't hear is the noise. On the microphone on television, you can't hear the noise that they're making. And, everyone's affected by this. All the players are affected, all the adjudicators. And when I say adjudicators, once upon a time there was only one.
That's right.
Now there's about 5. And so they're all influenced by this. I feel sorry for the referee, actually. But anyway, we'll get to that. So 18 all. I couldn't believe it. We didn't beat them. Now, I'm actually not that surprised when I think back on it. I'll stand by my comments that I made before. I think that the backline is the right backline. But we, that word front foot ball?
3 words.
Front foot ball is what every backline in the whole world wants.
Yep.
Front foot ball. That means you're running onto the ball. We got back foot ball.
Yeah.
We were going back. Our forwards were going back. The poor halfbacks were trying to clear the ball. Bowden and the crew are getting the ball and the player at the same time, and they were loving it. The crowd was roaring. Everyone was getting carried away. The referees, the adjudicators, the whole lot. It was a mighty big party going on, and the All Blacks were under immense pressure. This is actually really good for them because they've got to be able to handle that sort of stuff. And I think as you travel around as an All Black team, everyone's throwing the kitchen sink at you, but nobody throws it as hard or as passionately as the Argentinians, in my view and in my experience. So there. It's not all, the world's not over.
No, it's not over, but we didn't play well, and we got punched. I think
it's one of those things.
We got punched, didn't we? We got smacked in the mouth, and we didn't really respond to it. So there's many aspects to this game. But the most concerning thing for me, this side of the microphone, just as a fan, is after 5 tests this year, we still aren't quite putting it together. And we didn't put it together at all in that game. They've had 19 tests now in charge, this new coaching group, Mex. I've come up with 5 where I reckon we played pretty damn well, but that's 14 where we haven't. So the questions are going to start being asked. How long does it take for them to be able to imprint what they want to do on these players and inspire them and give them that confidence?
Those 5 you're talking about, they were the last 4, right?
No. Hell no. They were.
Well, we beat We beat France. We beat France
3 times.
and now we've beaten Argentina in the first of the 2.
Sure, okay. But look at the test this year. This is how I look at those tests. I think for 40 minutes of the second test against France, we played bloody well. I think for the first 20 minutes of the third half, we played really well. I don't think we were convincing at all in that first test. We got the wins, sure. Against Argentina in the first test, we played really well in about 3 10 to 15 minute periods, but again, not for the entire 80 minutes. We're never going to be brilliant for 80 minutes, but I'd expect it to be a bit more cohesive for 80 minutes.
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit different.
Okay.
I always say exactly what I think, in my view, and everyone's entitled to a view. And I can see all the journos and yourself definitely don't have my view on this one.
Sure.
Because I've been very patient waiting to assess Razor and his crew. Now, last year, the crew was about 100 big, and I think they've fined and narrowed it down to, a 3-man panel. And I think those guys, the selection of that team has changed dramatically this year because now there's only 3 people picking it. And so I've been waiting to see this happen because I've been questioning selection in the last year, and they were finding out things, they were learning. And that's, we don't like the All Black team losing.
No.
80% of the games over the last 100 years we've won, so we don't like it very much. But the reality is the selectors hadn't experienced this level of rugby, and very few people do. And I don't think they got it right last year, but this year they looked like they were getting it right. It looked to me like they were. And each time they name the team, I'm learning a little bit more about those 3 gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought they had it right, and so I stand by my comments. However, what we did is we ran into a ferocious and passionate Argentinian group. It wasn't just the team. It was the guys on the bench. It was the coaches. It was the crowd. It was everything. It was the moment. And even in the streets, you can feel the passion in Argentina. I mean, it's one of the things that I loved about the place. There was just raw passion everywhere, and rugby players like raw passion too. But anyway, the other thing that happened that everyone's forgotten about, it's very easy to forget what happened in that game. After 34 minutes in that game, we had 2 yellow cards. I think it was after 30 minutes, we were doing okay. We were up
13-6.
13-6. Yeah. So not bad after 13 minutes. We withheld the onslaught. However, after 32 minutes or whatever it was, they ordered off a player, and a minute later another player. So now we're down to 13 players. Now, for those people that are helping, that are listening to this conversation, people that haven't experienced that probably can't judge, but if you've played in a game where you've had a player sent off and the game's moving around the place like that one was, it's bloody hard with 1 guy off. With 2 guys off, it's impossible.
But we played okay. We played okay.
Playing in that environment.
We held them out. But we held them out with 13 men. We defended absolutely courageously. They scored 1 try, but we actually held 13 all at half time. That was a real positive, no question. But those yellow cards were our fault as well, weren't they?
At 34 minutes, it was 13 all.
Yeah.
And we got to halfway, and we'd only conceded, 7 points, I think we'd conceded. That's all. Was it 7 or 10? And then we got another guy sent off. Someone came back and someone else went off. I mean, after 71 minutes, it was 26-20. Now, we sort of gained back, I thought, back a little bit of parity when we had 15 men on the field, to be frank. So I'm not writing them off, but I am saying that this is an education. This is international rugby, when you go away and play away from home, is an education. South Africa is an education also in a different way. Completely different way. France is an incredible education, and they'll do everything they can to upset you because that's the way they feel. If they can upset you, they'll win the game, and it's something that All Blacks have to learn. And there's a lot of young players that haven't been to Argentina and played before, so they will learn from that. Going back to selection, I actually thought the selection was good. I think they're showing that they know what they're doing, and I was really pleased with it. But we only won 30. Did they say 38% possession?
Yeah, just under 40.
When as an All Black team, only won 38% possession. I can't remember when, and yet it's the biggest team that we've forwarded in the forwards, the tallest team we've fielded since Kieran Reid and Jerome Kano were in the loose forwards. And of course, we've got Holland, who's bigger than any lock we've ever had in the past in height. So we had plenty of guys to win the ball, but we were simply out-passioned. And we were getting the ball going backwards. When you get the ball going backwards, very hard for any backline in the world to do any good. So it's all about the go forward ball in my view. So anyway, I'm defending them, but I think there's really good grounds, plus the yellow cards. And it's very hard to win a game when you've had 3 yellow cards. So I'm not panicking. I'm not upset about it. I think it's probably going to give the coaches and the selectors an angle. I don't think there'll be massive changes for the first test against the Springboks. They've shown their loyalty. I don't think you could blame the only change, which was Parker. In fact, some of the critics have said that he was the most effective of our team when I read the paper, but I'm not saying he was. I haven't formed an opinion on him yet because it wasn't a good game to form an opinion on him. But he did make some metres. So, I don't think there's going to be a lot of change. I think you'll see a similar team going on the field against the Springboks. So it's going to be a very interesting next game. One thing it has done, it's made the Rugby Championship unbelievably interesting.
Yeah, it has.
And you've got to say now, I mean, how much stronger is the Southern Hemisphere rugby than Northern Hemisphere rugby?
Look, first time ever that there's been 4 teams have had a win each after the opening round. So that says an awful lot, doesn't it? It says that the teams have evened themselves up as well. And Argentina and Australia are on the rise. But you can't be happy with the most fundamental mistakes we keep making. We've got wingers that can't catch high balls. We've got a backline that's just not functioning, that's got no fluidity to it. 5 tests in a year, 14 after last year, 5 tests this year. Surely we expect and demand a higher standard than that, than what we are seeing from the way that backline is playing, for example. Let's just isolate that.
Yeah, absolutely. We want a higher standard. But don't blame the backs, I'm saying.
Well, who do you blame?
Blame the forwards.
Blame the forwards.
Blame the forwards. And, if you're Sevu Reece or anyone else and you're waiting for a ball to come down and there's 5 players screaming at you from 5 metres away, it's not a comfortable scenario. And you're sort of, often you're going backwards. He was going backwards on several occasions. But, it's a bloody hard thing to do in that environment. When one team's got the momentum and the other team is trying to hold the fort, that's the reality, and that's the way it finished. And you'd have to say, congratulations, Argentina.
Oh, yes.
Well done.
Yes.
You won the first time you've beaten the All Blacks in Argentina. Good on you. But they have come of age, and they have come of age because they're playing in the strongest rugby competition in the world. So if you set up half a dozen European, Northern Hemisphere rugby teams and half a dozen Southern Hemisphere rugby teams, and you played them in a competition, 5 out of the top 6 places would be Southern Hemisphere teams. So this is the strongest rugby competition in the world, and it's the strongest because the South Africans have continued to grow and the Argentinians have grown enormously. Now, it's over 10 years now that they've been playing in this rugby championship. Yep. I think it's about 15. I'm not quite
13
sure.
or 14, yeah.
Exact. So they've built their own players. Originally, what they had to do is they had to send their players to Europe, or their players went to Europe and were paid reasonable money to be away from home and playing up there. But very hard to then bring them back and mix them with the guys from Argentina who hadn't been away. That's another dynamic that you've got to get together to build the team. And I hope that never happens in our game. And they seem to be managing it well because we don't have as many players as these other teams. They even have more rugby players in Argentina than we do because they've got a bigger population, clearly. So I'm not panicking. I mean, I don't like to see the All Blacks lose ever. I want them to win every single game.
Sure.
But I can understand why they lost that game. And they were simply outpassioned. The referee, I felt sorry for. He had a barrage of people bloody throwing in their 5 bob, and he felt like he had to give them all a go,
Well, that's World Rugby rules these days.
I saw another referee. Martin, in the weekend, I watched another game, can't remember which one it was the Springbok under a Japanese referee. It was bloody hilarious because we could hear the microphone that came through the television, and there were assistant referees and bloody TMOs yelling stuff at the Japanese guy, and he was just ignoring them. Now, I don't know whether he couldn't understand what the hell they were saying, because the Japanese, they speak Japanese in Japan. They don't speak English. I don't know whether because he couldn't understand or whether he thought, I can't handle all this, I'm concentrating on refereeing the game.
As he should.
And I thought he allowed the game to flow, and it went well. Whereas that All Black game versus Argentina, you'd have to say, was stop-start. And I think that's due to all the people contributing. The poor old referee, what a barrage of comments were coming in from left, right and centre. Yeah, so anyway, the players will learn a lot. The coaches will learn a lot. And remember, they're new boys on the block as well.
Well, again, how long, Mex? How long? And this is the frustration that I feel just as a fan. They've had 14 tests. They've had another 5 tests. How much patience do we have? If this was Ian Foster, he'd be wearing it and he'd been copping it. I got enough patience here. I'm sitting here. I want these guys to get it right. But when you look at 5 tests this year and you look at a backline that's still malfunctioning, at what stage do you start asking questions of those coaches and saying, what aren't you doing, or what more could you be doing?
Yeah, fair enough. I actually think they're doing the right things now. And as I'll repeat what I said last year, I didn't think so. I didn't think they were selecting the right people, but they've worked out who their men are, and they're building a team.
Would you
and
not?
They came unstuck in the.
Would you not?
They came unstuck in the weekend.
Can I?
And everyone comes unstuck. You can have a go at me next week if they get beaten by South Africa in a week's time.
Okay.
Have a go at me.
Look,
but I think these guys will bounce back from that, and it may help us win this first test against South Africa at that fortress of ours in Eden Park.
Couple of questions then. I want to get on to them at last as to what you thought of that South Africa performance against Australia and just where Australia are at the moment. A lot of clamour though, and this is what happens when the All Blacks lose. There's a lot of clamour. We get hundreds and hundreds of comments every time you appear. We get hundreds of comments every time we're talking about the All Blacks at the moment. We did a post-match thing on Sunday, 800 and something comments. People yelling for Leroy Carter, put him in the team. Put Tava Nawai in the team. Break up that backline. Get rid of these guys. Put Jordan on the wing. Put McKenzie at fullback, making wholesale changes to that backline. How do you react to all of that stuff? The clamour for, look, this hasn't worked, therefore we have to try new players.
Yeah, but it's been happening for 100 years, that. As soon as the All Black team loses, every man these dogs should be thrown out, which of course, weak men sometimes bend to, and they overreact, and they sometimes change 5 or 6 players. These guys aren't weak men. These guys are solid troopers. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of changes. There might be, I said 1, there might be 2, maybe 3, but I don't think so.
Do you base
I don't think so.
Do you base that on the fact that it is All Black tradition, if you lose a game, that you give those guys another chance to rectify that? There's always that attitude, isn't there, as well?
It's not so much that. It's more continuity, having guys working together. I played a lot of rugby with Dave Loveridge as halfback. I was really lucky. I think all but 1 test was with Trapper at halfback, and in the end, you instinctively knew what he wanted and he knew what I was going to do when we were under pressure and stuff like that. And that's how you build combinations. And rugby's a team sport. Rugby isn't a whole bunch of individuals playing a game.
Yep.
All those teams that are a bunch of, that old expression I keep on throwing at you, Martin. A good team will always beat a team of good players, and that's what Razor's teams are. They're good teams, and they get them working together and playing well together. And I think that the first test against the Springboks will tell all. And if they stick to the players that they're very confident or they're learning about, if they stick with them and they play well, all those people yelling in your ear, change this guy, change that guy, they'll all disappear because they'll realise that, the team is growing. And under new coaches, and they're new coaches again this year because there were so many bloody coaches last year. That's what I was critical of. How many did they have? About 10, I think. But now there's 3 men in charge, and those guys will make decisions for this game. And if they resist the temptation, to make wholesale changes, and I think they will, because they're not stupid, these guys, our team will play well against the Box. If they don't, all the people that are ringing into you and giving messages, you can congratulate them and say, well done, you were right. And then the All Black selectors are in real trouble. But don't panic just yet.
This is the DSPN.